Of the benefits of Hudaybiyyah is that we have to realize وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. They plot and plan, Allah plots and plans, and Allah is the best of all planners. You cannot outwit Allah. You can't. You might think something is evil, like all of these conditions of Hudaybiyyah, but Allah has planned it, and each of these conditions turned out to be a victory for the Muslims. Our wisdom is limited, Allah's wisdom is infinite. When this situation happens, it's beyond our control. You put your trust in Allah and you make the best of every situation. You make the best of every situation. This is one of the main things we learn from Hudaybiyyah. Yes, evil happens. Yes, we have our Abu Jandas in our times. We have our Guantanamo Bays. Yes, we do. What can we do here living in North America? What can we do? Except make dua to Allah and then publicize to the people. Talk, preach. This is not a part of Islam, and it's not a part of the American tradition to do what is being done to these people here. It goes against every single value of the Human Rights Declaration, every single Geneva Convention out there. What are you doing? We're allowed to preach. Take that anger that we have and channel it in a halal manner. We learned this from the Treaty of Hudaibiyya. Yes, we're supposed to be angry. It would not be Islamic if we weren't angry. If we just sat back and said, tough luck, that's their business, this is mine. No, we are one ummah. If a thorn pricks our brother across the earth, we should feel some pain and sympathy for him. Yes, we should. But that pain and sympathy, that anger and frustration, it has to be channeled in a halal, in a permissible manner. And in the situation and the context and the times we're living in, that halal and permissible manner constitutes turning to Allah and then publicizing by mouth, by preaching, by talking to our fellow men, Muslims and non-Muslims. And this is of the most important benefits of Hudaybiyyah. And lastly, of the benefits of Hudaybiyyah is that preaching Islam is the best and the strongest form of da'wah. And in this society, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a great blessing. We have no problems standing up and talking about our religion. We should be proud of this. We should be proud as Muslims and we should be proud as Americans. We should be happy that we're allowed to preach and teach. This is what the Prophet negotiated with the Quraysh. The Muslims at that time took advantage of it, and that is why Islam spread. The question is, are we taking advantage of that freedom? Do your neighbors know what your religion is? Do your co-workers know the real meaning of Islam? If they don't, whose fault is that? And who do you think is going to come knocking on their door if it's not going to be you? Who do you think is going to talk to your co-workers and your people out there if it's not going to be you? We have this freedom. The Prophet had to negotiate it. But when he did, immediately it was a resounding success. Why? Because the Muslims back then were real Muslims. In our times, unfortunately, we're not living up to those standards. Can you imagine if every one of us sitting here today was able to talk about Islam to his circle of acquaintances and friends? If every one of us introduced, and that's all we have to do. We don't have to force anybody to convert. All we have to do is tell them what is our religion about. And once we have done it, that's it. Allah Azza wa Jal will then judge them and guide them. It's not our duty to guide. It is Allah who guides. Our duty is to convey. إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ. Your job is balagh, preaching. عَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ. Leave judgments to Allah. But we haven't even done the balagh. And brothers and sisters, let me conclude by asking you, imagine on the Day of Judgment, just imagine on the Day of Judgment, you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're so happy you have these good deeds. You've prayed Taraweeh here, you have fasted the month of Ramadan, you've done so much other goods, Allah knows how much you have done. You're so happy standing there. And when Allah Azza wa Jal announces, does anybody have complaints against this man? All of a sudden, your neighbor stands up on one side, and another neighbor on the other, and another co-worker on another, and another person you met here, and another person you met there. And they will say, yes, O Allah, I have a complaint. You are sending me to hell because I'm not a Muslim, because I'm not this and that. Okay, but how about this man who had the opportunity to come to me? How was I expected to know about your religion when this man whom I ate with, whom I used to go to work with, whom I used to live next to for 10, 15, 20 years, he never once told me what his faith was? How about this man? Does he not deserve a portion of that punishment as well? He didn't do his job as a Muslim. I ask you, what is your response going to be? Don't tell me, because this is a realistic scenario. We have an obligation, it is fard kifaya. It is an obligation, brothers and sisters. إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ أُدْعُوا إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ. Give da'wah to the way of Allah. Allah commands us. Give da'wah. That's all you have to do. That's it, man. Nothing else. You don't have to go and force them and irritate them and go every day knocking. No. Just explain to them what your belief is. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Tawheed, Risala, Akhirah. That's it. Explain to them in a nutshell. It will not take you more than 5 minutes. Do it in a wise way. It's the month of Ramadan. When it's time for iftar, send them some food. Send them some food and say, it's our holy month of Ramadan, and it is our tradition that when it is Ramadan, we send food to the neighbors and our friends. And they will come and ask you, oh, so what is this Ramadan? What do you do in it? And you open up the door for da'wah. You don't have to go knocking with the Quran in your hand, because that's going to irritate them. You know that. But there's wise ways of doing da'wah. There's wise ways of doing it, and you all know it. I don't have to teach you that. The point is, have you even done this? Or are you so embarrassed that you don't want anybody to know you're a Muslim? You don't want anybody to associate yourself with this religion of Islam. In this case, what will you answer to Allah on that day? Brothers and sisters, the Treaty of Hudaibiyya, I conclude by stating, the Treaty of Hudaibiyya is a very relevant, a very pertinent incident in the life of the Prophet ﷺ that teaches us that there are many, many ways of achieving the pleasure of Allah. Of them is just by being patient at the evil we see, turning to Allah with dua and preaching to others the beauty of this religion of Islam. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the wisdom, the iman, the ikhlas, the tawfiq to understand the good in this incident and the incidents, all of the incidents of the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I pray that He allows us to follow the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that He accepts our fasting and our standing of this month. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdi Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question was, at what point of time, the name Allah came to existence, because the other three religions didn't have, I think, this name. They were calling God with a different name. Like the God itself came by the Persian name. So can you throw some light on this?
Okay. The first question was what happened with the Treaty of Hudaibiyya and how was it basically the annulled. This is of course moving on to the 8th year of the Hijrah. What happened was one of the allies of the Quraysh, they attacked one of the allies of the Muslims, and the Quraysh knew about it and they agreed, and it is even said they helped them. So the Quraysh basically broke the treaty of peace by helping and aiding the attack of some Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ basically sent them a message that this is treachery, and so the treaty is null and void. And after he sent them this message, then he went out to do the conquest of Mecca in the 8th year of the Hijrah. And this shows us that even when you're going to break a treaty for a legitimate reason, you cannot just surprise them and say, we're not holding to it. You have to tell them, you broke the treaty, therefore we're not witnessing this treaty anymore.